Trains are often a place of transit, where passengers fall asleep with dreams of reaching their destinations. But for some, sleep aboard a train leads to nightmares they can't escape. These stories delve into the eerie and the inexplicable, where the safety of the tracks gives way to terror. Each tale is crafted to grip you, with breaks at the perfect moments to let the suspense linger. It was 2016, and Jennifer was taking an overnight train from Chicago to Denver. She chose a sleeper car, hoping for a peaceful journey. Her cabin was cozy, with a small bed and a window offering glimpses of the moonlit countryside. As the train sped through the night, Jennifer felt a strange unease. The train felt too quiet. Around midnight, she woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside her cabin. They were slow, deliberate, and seemed to stop right outside her door. She held her breath, listening, but whoever it was didn't knock or speak. Instead, the footsteps continued down the hallway, fading into silence. Dismissing it as another passenger, she tried to fall back asleep. An hour later, Jennifer woke again, this time to a low murmuring sound. It was coming from inside her cabin. Terrified, she turned on the small reading light next to her bed. To her horror, she saw a man sitting in the chair opposite her bed, staring out the window. He was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a gray suit and a hat, and his face was pale and expressionless. Jennifer screamed, but the man didn't react. Instead, he turned his head slowly to look at her, his eyes empty and cold. "Why are you here?" she managed to whisper. The man didn't answer but raised a hand to point at the window. When Jennifer turned to look, the reflection in the glass didn't match what was inside the cabin. In the reflection, the man wasn't sitting, he was standing right behind her, his face twisted into a sinister grin. Jennifer bolted out of the cabin and ran to find the conductor. When they returned, the cabin was empty, with no sign of the man. The conductor looked puzzled and said, "You're the only passenger in this car tonight." Jennifer spent the rest of the trip in the dining car, too afraid to return to her cabin. Later, she learned that a man had died in that very cabin years ago, a heart attack during a solo journey. The moral? When you travel, some passengers may have been riding the train far longer than you think. In 2018, Marcus boarded a train in Berlin, bound for Prague. It was a late-night service, and he was exhausted after a long day of work. He found an empty compartment, leaned his head against the window, and quickly drifted off to sleep. When he woke up, the train was moving through a tunnel. The lights flickered, and the compartment was eerily cold. Marcus checked his watch and saw it was 2:13 a.m. The tunnel seemed to stretch on endlessly, with no sign of an exit. He glanced around the compartment and noticed something strange. His reflection in the window wasn't moving. It stared straight ahead, even when he turned his head. A chill ran down his spine as the reflection slowly smiled at him. Panicking, Marcus turned away from the window and tried to open the compartment door. It wouldn't budge, no matter how hard he pulled. The train's lights flickered again, and the air grew colder. Suddenly, he heard a voice whisper his name, coming from the opposite seat. But the compartment was empty. The voice grew louder, more insistent, and Marcus felt something cold brush against his shoulder. He spun around but saw nothing. The tunnel outside seemed darker now, the train moving faster than ever. Just when he thought he couldn't take it anymore, the train burst out of the tunnel into daylight. The compartment warmed, and the door finally opened. Marcus stumbled out and asked the conductor about the tunnel. The conductor looked confused and said, "There's no tunnel on this route." Shaken, Marcus stayed awake for the rest of the journey. He later discovered that the tunnel he described matched one that had collapsed decades ago, killing dozens of passengers. The moral? Some routes are better left forgotten, even by trains. In 2020, Lisa and her friends decided to take a scenic train trip across Canada. They booked a shared sleeper car, excited to enjoy the journey together. The first night was uneventful, with everyone chatting and laughing before falling asleep. But on the second night, Lisa woke up to find an unfamiliar man sitting at the edge of her bunk. His back was to her, and he was muttering something she couldn't understand. She assumed he was drunk and in the wrong cabin. "Excuse me, you're in the wrong place," she said, her voice shaky. The man didn't respond but continued muttering. Lisa reached out to tap his shoulder, but her hand passed through him like smoke. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The man stood up slowly, his movements unnatural, like a puppet on strings. He turned to face her, revealing hollow eyes and a mouth that didn't move as he spoke. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice echoing in the small cabin. Lisa screamed, waking her friends, but the man had vanished. Her friends dismissed it as a nightmare, but Lisa knew what she had seen. The next morning, she noticed scratches on the window near her bunk, as if someone had tried to claw their way in. When she mentioned it to the train staff, they exchanged uneasy glances. One of them whispered, "There's a story about this car, a man who disappeared here years ago." Lisa spent the rest of the trip in the lounge, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The moral? Some spirits aren't tied to places, they travel, just like us. Trains carry more than passengers, they carry memories, energy, and sometimes, spirits. These stories remind us that even in the most ordinary places, the extraordinary can happen. So, the next time you board a train, stay alert. You never know what or who might join you for the ride.